Welcome back to Confessions of an SEO. I'm your host, Carolyn Holzman, and this week I'm going to continue about the topic from last week, the volatility in the search results. But this time it'll mostly be for the SEOs, like ways to share this with our clients and our customers. So there's plenty here. If you're a business owner, don't feel like you're not going to get something. I think it would be very helpful. Now, I'm going to give the Cliff Notes versions about last week because I'm not going to assume that everybody listened. But basically, I was talking about an online conversation between a bunch of SEOs about how we need to be precise in our language and our terms and not wait for some press release from Mountain View to be able to know how to tell or how to describe what we're going to discuss about what we see. To not let Google into the mix to confuse things, and how we have a certain obligation as SEOs to take over that conversation and be affirmative based on our own experiences. Google is very often not going to contribute value to the community conversation in a way that is clarifying. And if there's anything we need, it is clarification, as was shared with me from a comment, or actually should say a suggestion, from last week's episode that I might want to explain, not to SEOs, but maybe a little bit, but definitely to business owners, what I mean by volatility. What I mean by volatility is when your page bounces around and one or two spots up or down is normal and natural. That's what I refer to as volatility. You do not own your spot in the position. You're pretty much never really always number 14. Okay. Thank you for my buddies for sharing that. Okay, here's going on with that topic. I think really the bottom line is we as SEOs should stop waiting for them, Google, and we should take it upon ourselves to describe things and to basically assume for ourselves the authority, because we do have eyes. I think how to say this? It's our job. If we're going to be an SEO, we can't always shield our clients from the reality. I think sometimes that has been the source of my pain as an SEO, is very often having to absorb, I think, the discrepancies between what would be happening in Google compared to the customer's expectations, the client's expectations. And we I think, just have to step into that role, that's our job. That's, I think, the value that we bring to it is obviously how search engines work. And I think equally we have to understand how search engines do not work. Things are getting complicated. And certainly since the last year and a half, 2 years, it started for me, I would say, December 15th, 2019 is when I saw something just absolute. It's like the bottom fall out. Anyway, I believe as SEOs that we need to be able to develop the confidence, the courage, and the confidence in what we're seeing, and the courage to communicate that to our clients. Now, they might choose to still think that it's you making excuses, and that's too bad for them. Maybe that's a sign that you could actually work with people who understand what you're doing for them. Maybe just clear out your schedule. So on that lovely and engaging note, let's move on. So I had a conversation with another SEO last Friday, and we were talking about how difficult it currently is to get real content indexed into Google. I'm not talking about test pages. I'm talking about businesses and real content. And I can't tell you how many times as an SEO I have sweated bullets on why a page, knowing what I know about what's important, still doesn't get ranked into the index for its keyword. And the thing I learned over the last 2 years is that if it's happening, and if that's happening in my tests, and if that's happening in other testers' tests, there is good news. And the good news is, it's not my fault, it's not your fault. Stepping back, we cannot control the weather. We cannot control another company. So when Google decides to index your page or your client's pages, they do it on their own schedule. And it's not necessarily you as an SEO did anything wrong or not enough or you don't know SEO, okay? It's not a mind game. Like if you have published a lot of content lately and you've seen difficulty, like where the heck it ranks for the desired search terms, you're not alone, okay? You're not losing your mind. It is not you. This is why I've grown a more appropriate respect for how Google doesn't function 100% of the time. It's a real relief. I mean, it really cuts down on the mind games. You, as an SEO, you might want to keep your client and to be the one to talk with your client about the volatility in SERPs. I know it's a conversation we want to avoid because to a large degree we feel that we're supposed to, I think in some ways, be responsible for how our work performs in Google. And that's true to a point, but you've got to be able to get in the game. And if Google is making it harder to get into the game, that's not on you. I think the bottom line is Google is going to index those pages when they feel darn good and ready. So there's a funny thing. I was talking to another colleague and I shared a little something that I had learned about another niche in a specific city. And his response was great. He was like, oh my God, I have a new client, not only in that niche, but in that same city. And we've published, and we've tried everything we can think of to get it indexed. It was sort of weird that it happened that way, but it was also kind of validating because it's exactly what I've been seeing and what others have been seeing and what others have been talking about. And I know I often talk about tests, but there's a lot of things you can learn from tests. I think to stay at the top of the field, we're going to have to tell our clients, we're going to have to break it to them, that right now the days of easy indexing are probably over. Google is behaving more and more like an answer machine. Some things that used to happen simultaneously and effortlessly, such as publishing and indexing, they just aren't happening simultaneously and effortlessly, at least for the time being, which is all we really have. It is a jungle out there, and I understand it may be really uncomfortable having this talk with a client, because there are times where the client may think you are making this up. You're just making excuses because you want them to keep sending payments. I almost said checks. And it's really, I think we have to ask ourselves, is it really our fault as SEOs that Google has an index rendering problem issue? This topic triggers me because back in the first couple of episodes, I think I talked about how much I love SEO. And in episode 2 is how much I hate client SEO. And I think I finally have a little bit more of a handle on it, that when business owners who have bought the Google story, hook, line, and sinker, Google is here, Google is my friend, Google is helping me, Google gives me free this, they have that, who are you? I've known Google longer than I've known you. They don't trust you as an SEO. Who, compared to Google, you have a far greater vested interest in their business than Google, by the way. So, word of advice. The piece you need to maybe keep in mind is that Google might be broken on any given day, or playing a catch-up game because it was broken for so long. And it's not just content. There's all these traffic signals that have got to get recalculated, backlinks, images that have to be processed. These things take time to find. Then they get crawled, and then it's got to make its way through all the processes. Backlinks got to get into the link graph, where ultimately then everything gets recalculated, and then your page changes. It can take months. So protect yourself. Take responsibility for what you can. I'm not saying don't try, but don't pretend that it's all on you. Your clients don't know any better, and they need you to explain it. No time like the present. All right, this is Carolyn Holzman with Confessions of an SEO. Remember, your comments and questions are always welcome. Please send them by email to confessions@americanwaymedia.com. And remember, there's the website, podcast website, confessionsofanseo.com. I started a YouTube channel with the same name. So if you feel inclined to like all of that, subscribe. Sure do appreciate it. All right. That's the end of this week's Confessions of an SEO. This is Carolyn Holzman, and I'll see you in the SERPs.